You guys. So as you guys know, we're starting a new series all about dating, relationships, hardships, all these great things that a lot of people have questions about, and we're going to try to address everything that you have. I think there's going to be a question and answers that I'll let Meshreky kind of give the intro to that, or John. But it's a blessing to see you guys, and it's a blessing to have Peter and Christina here tonight to give us the first talk. So first, before Peter and Christina, I'm just going to have Meshreky kind of give the...
Hi guys. I did not know I was going to be getting the mic. But I guess I'll just a little bit just talk about how this series started. Basically, I was sent the YouTube series from Canada. I don't know if you guys saw. I hope you did. But basically, it's like amazing. Like it's the exact same thing that's here. It was like 6 different weeks, and they have it like twice a year, and they've been doing this since like 2018, and they'll have a series every single year, and it's amazing. So check it out. But hopefully this one will be amazing too, God willing. But so I saw that, and I was showing Dina. I was literally showing her, and I was like, Dina, look at this amazing series. And I was literally just talking to her about it, and then she's like, Ray, why don't you do this? And I was like, what? and then I thought about it, and I was like, she's seriously genius. I feel like we've come to the point where like we've grown up, and it was like, don't date, and it was all for good reason. But I just like, we're all coming to that age where it's starting, it's around us, we talk about it at every friend hangout, it's an interesting topic, we all like talking about it. I don't know if you're familiar with the game, Make It or Break It, and all of that. But yeah, so it's something like I need, it's something we all need, and I welcome you all. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you all came, but without further ado, Peter and Tina.
Thank you.
Choose your side. Which side are you going to be on? Is that your side?
Bible's in my hand.
So sorry guys, I'm a hand talker. Oh, that might be a problem. Okay. I'm a hand talker, so I'm going to use like my wireless mic and or my hands-free mic. So I will tell you that one of the cool things about the Coptic Church is we are a church built on many years of traditions, centuries of traditions, and as a church, one of the things I will quickly say is that we never change, like at all. Okay, and I will tell you, one of the cool things about it is when they said, hey, we're gonna, have this talk, and we want to get like a big group together, and how can we get like the highest attendance from like, this age group, what should we talk about? We said, okay, we're gonna tell them it's about dating, right? We're gonna tell them it's about dating because even 20 some years ago, back when I was in that stage of my life, right, like everyone would show up for like a dating talk. Right? And it's nice to see that 20-some years later in the Coptic Church it's not changing, because to get a big group together, you just tell them you're going to talk about dating. Well, the joke's on you guys, okay? Because in reality, we're going to talk about, for like maybe the next 2 to 3 hours, the theology of the Trinity, okay? No? Do you guys want to talk about something different? Okay, well, well, I will tell you, I'm just playing, right? And honestly, that is a great book, though, but I do recommend it because this is live streamed. So, but I will tell you, when they said that we're going to talk about dating, one of the things that I was super excited about, because this is a topic that's like really, really close to my heart. And it might be close to my heart differently than it's close to your heart, because, see, I grew up in a house that unfortunately ended up being broken. Okay? And if I told you that didn't mess with me somehow, I would be lying. And of course, we all know that like 99% of Coptic households are all very happily married, right? It is a perfect picture of the gospel, right? Like, husband loving the wife, wife submitting to the husband, but, mine wasn't. So I remember early on, 20-some years ago, right, when I was kind of getting to the point of the dating age, and I had to start making some pretty big decisions, one of the things that I decided is that I'm going to be a chain breaker. Like just because I grew up in a house like that didn't mean that I needed to be a house like that. And I started to kind of like, it hit my radar, and I said that this is going to be something that I'm going to get really good at. So from like a young age, I was listening to podcasts, I was reading books, sermons, everything, because I realized that I needed to do it different. Now, I'll tell you by the grace of God, we got married. A couple years into the marriage, we were expecting Nathaniel. Raise your hand, Nathaniel. That's him right there. And I have to say, we were happily married. We had a couple years under our belt, right? The first, everyone talked about how hard marriage was, and I was like, no, it's you hit your bumps in the road, but you kind of get through it. And everyone said that the next big thing was when you have kids, like it's going to get harder. So at that point, I said, okay, look, I'm going to sign up me and Christina for like a wedding conference, because I always hear the commercial on Christian radio, and it was called A Weekend to Remember. And we decided that we would do it away and kind of make like a little, baby moon out of it, and kind of go hang out for a weekend away while we attended this marriage conference. And when we went, it was just a game changer, right? Like I'll tell you, it was 15 years ago. I can tell you, on Friday night, we talked about the 5 threats to oneness. On Saturday, we talked about communication. We talked about conflict resolution. Saturday night, we went out and had a date night. On Sunday, they separated the guys and the girls. They talked to the guys about how to be a husband, how to be a father. The girls, how to be a wife, how to be a mother. They brought you back together. They were talking about legacy casting. And me and Christina looked at each other, and we're like, you know what? We've never heard any of this, like at all. And it was like the first time that someone kind of like laid out like a biblical blueprint for marriage. And it made so much sense. And that's when I just realized that like this stuff is so important. I'm happy that you guys at a young age, are invested in something like this. I pray that it's more about the marriage than the dating, right? But that you guys start making some decisions, because the fact is this is a very, very important topic that's going to affect the rest of your life. And I will tell you that there's no way around that. If you do it right, it's going to be a blessing for the rest of your life. If you do it wrong, man, that's going to hurt. Okay? So, one of the things that I think that I just want to kind of bring up is that when we look all around us, society's always focusing on how to fall in love. You see it everywhere we go, movies, TV shows, commercials. Everyone talks about that whole falling in love stage, right? And that's always where the story ends, right? And then what's the Disney line at the end of the movie? And they lived happily ever after, right? I'm going to tell you right now, that's a lie. Okay, no one just lives happily ever after, right? No one tells you how to be a husband. No one tells you how to be a wife, how to be a father or a mother. And no one ever talks about how do you stay in love, right? And I'll tell you, one of my favorite quotes is people never plan to fail, they fail to plan, right? So I'll say that one more time. If you're taking notes, write this down. If you're not taking notes, write this down. People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Okay, now I'll tell you as a speaker, I'm going to do you guys a favor right now. We have 8 myths that we're going to work through tonight. Okay? I like to tell you that ahead of time, because if you start getting bored, no, we have 8. Well, I don't know. I don't want to lead them astray. Yeah, 8 myths. So we got 8 myths. Oh, she has 7. We have 15 myths. No, I'm just joking. We have 8 myths, okay? So I'm telling you that because of what? All right? So now you can gauge our pace. Okay? Some are longer than some are. But my thing is look, if you start getting bored and we're on like 6, we're almost there. Okay? So just we'll get there.
Okay.
You need a mic.
Yeah. I speak loud.
Nah?
First of all, I'm so excited to be here because this is my home church.
It is.
I grew up here. I'm Robert's sister. I know he didn't want me to say that, but everyone knows. I'm really excited to be here. Okay, so first one is dating. What dating is not wrong. I don't know how to do this thing. You do it. Wrong. False. Dating is wrong. And before you get up and go, let me tell you why. I'm going to first define it just straight Webster definition. Dating is going out with someone in whom you are romantically or sexually interested in. Sounds familiar. Sounds like the way that we've kind of been, doing it. It's focused more on your fun and enjoyment. That becomes the primary focus, and then we'll throw in there, maybe it'll turn into marriage. Kind of makes us feel better, right? There's a new term that I'm going to introduce to you, and maybe you've heard it before. It's called courting. Has anyone heard it? Yeah? Okay. Definition of courting is being involved romantically, typically with the intention of getting married. I don't care which definition you use. I don't care how you introduce that person that you're dating. It's about intentions. What is your intention? Is your intention to get married or just to have fun, right? Because dating, when it's done in that manner, the one that we're so used to doing, it's extremely dangerous. And it's dangerous because you're connecting yourself to someone on a spiritual level, on a physical level, emotional level, social level, right? And there becomes this unhealthy separation of the two, right? And it's not the way that God has planned it, because God wants a certain level of separation, right? Between some things are just off limits until you get married. And so, dating was designed originally, right, to kind of prepare you for marriage, but it has become a way to prepare you for divorce. You get super close to someone, you share things you shouldn't have shared, and then next thing you know, it doesn't work out. You find your ways, you cut your ties, friendships, and you do it all over again. And it teaches you how to be able to walk away because it wasn't done in a sacred manner. For girls, we treat it a lot like finding a good pair of jeans. Everybody wants that good pair of jeans, right? Wear it a couple times, you give it a shot, it doesn't work, you throw it aside, right? And that is the culture that we have been in. And so what really want to hack in marriage.
And it reminds me of actually something that we did when my kids, when they turn about 10 or so, I take them on like a little weekend and we have like the talk, right? And I'll never forget. There's activity that we do where we basically take out two puzzles. Okay, I have a puzzle and my kid has a puzzle, right? And then when they have a race to see who can put the puzzle together first. But the X factor is I take away his lid with the picture on it. Right? So for me, I'm just kind of working away. I'm putting my puzzle together. I got the picture. I'm figuring it all out. How do you think my kid feels? Cheated? Lost? Confused? Frustrated? Right? Why?
There's no blueprint for him.
Yeah, he has no idea what it's supposed to look like. Right? And can you imagine how frustrating it would be trying to put something together all by trial and error with no idea what it's supposed to look like? Well, in reality, that's what we do when we're pursuing dating kind of like on our own rules. The problem is we have a blueprint, right? We have our Bible, which tells us everything that's okay and everything that's not okay. We have our blueprint, but the problem is most of us, we don't even want to look at the picture. We don't care to see what the picture is because we're like, I'll just figure it out on my own because I think that I'm going to have my own better way, right? So the second myth, I need to find the right person. Okay, what do you guys think? True or false? I need to find the right iPad. False. I need to be the right person. And I'm going to tell you why this is a little bit this is really, really important, right? Because Bible verse that we should all have committed to memory is Matthew 6:33. Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you, right? So I'll actually tell you, you need to be the right person. Because if you are not the right person, and you find the perfect spouse, do you know what's going to happen? You're going to screw it up. 100% of the time, right? And that's if you get lucky enough to even get to the plate, right? Because chances are, if you are the wrong person, right? If you're not the right person, you come across a perfect spouse, guess what? They will not want you. It will never, ever work like that. But I will tell you, and there's a little bit of a play on words here, because do we kind of need to find the right person? Yeah, we do. But it goes this way, right? Like, how do you become the right person? This way, right? It's got to get vertical. Because I believe that when your relationship with God is right, then other relationships could be right as well. If you haven't figured that out, then no one will ever want to be with you. You don't bring anything to the table. Because especially being married, I will tell you that I don't believe that we can love anyone correctly with only your own love. Because marriage is hard. Right? And there's going to be times where none of your love is left. And you need to kind of chime in and funnel somebody else's love. And that's the only way it'll work. We need to possess like this pass-through love, right? That we can receive from God himself. The only way that we can be filled up that way, that will allow us to love the person in front of us. Because marriage is probably going to be your most trying relationship in your whole entire life. Right? It's the most blessed relationship, but it is not easy. It requires love, it requires grace, mercy, forgiveness, and a lot of those times, that does not come naturally at all. So you need to find the right person, God, so that you can be the right person, which means God-like, in your relationship. Because happiness will not be found with the right person. It's not going to be found with the right significant other, because the reality of it is, and I think we all know this, but if you put your trust in whoever you are married to, you will be disappointed. That day will come, right? So that you cannot depend on that as your source of happiness. But the one that never disappoints, that's where that primary relationship needs to come from. All right, so myth number 3. How many do we have in total?
6, 7.
Oh, God. Philo, and you're in the front? Jeez. Okay, 8. All right, so we're on number 3, okay? Myth number 3. It has to happen organically. Now, this is one that we hear all of the time being old, okay? Because we try to hook people up, and they always say, no, like, I don't want to be hooked up. Right? Like, I just want to be having a latte at Starbucks, and out of all of the people, Coptic Orthodox guy is going to walk in the door, It's like really? So obviously you can already tell where I'm going with this one. This one is false, okay? And the reason being, Yelp has 142 million users, okay? And that 142 million users all believe that reviews are important. Right? And I started thinking about this, right? I will not walk into a restaurant to spend 30 to 60 minutes of my time just to eat a meal, which will be over within an hour, without a review. Right? Or am I the only one? But at the same time, we could possibly join ourselves to another human being for the rest of our lives without one. Does that make any sense to anybody? And I will tell you, so profession-wise, I'm a banker, okay? So even I see this play out even at work, right? Because I know that, so my highest probability of closing a deal is by having a solid relationship with a client and they introduce me to somebody else, okay? And the reason that works out so well is because if there's somebody that knows about me, what I do at my bank and the services that we offer, okay, and there's somebody that and he knows, like a business owner, who knows his needs, his temperament, and what he's looking for. And he basically says, well, I know this, and I know this, and there's a match, right? Well, at that point, I feel good about it, okay? Because they tell the client about Peter, right? They tell Peter about the client. Expectations on both sides are crystal clear, right? And it removes all of the guesswork and all of the other messy stuff that you kind of have to deal with, trying to figuring it out on your own. Now, I'll also be honest with you. Not all referral sources are created equally. Okay? So, and I will tell you, just, I can dive into that on the banking side, but we'll skip that, right? And I will tell you, for your sake, the best referral source that you guys should be looking for are older married couples. Why do you think that's so? Any ideas? Because they've been together for so long? Okay, what else?
They know the expectation versus the reality.
They know expectation versus reality. What else? They know it's important. 100%, all of them, right? Because they know what marriage is about. They know the qualities to look for, right? They're not just going to hook you up with somebody who's dreamy, right? Like, oh, I ran into this guy and he's got the most amazing eyes, right? So you're going to have to go out with him. Like, you'll never get the old married couple who's spiritual. That will tell you that, okay? You might get other people, but because they know that that's not what marriage is about. Right? Now I'm going to tell you, can you expect the same discernment from another single friend? No. Now if they say, hey, that's cool and stuff. Now for the single friend, you're probably going to get somebody who might be dreamy, right? But the problem is they might be dreamy with nothing else. So what you need to be looking at from when you're getting a referral from somebody is virtues, character. The things that really, really matter when you're talking about who am I going to do the rest of my life with. And that part's like the most important.
I think something that we have to address is that rejection sucks. Okay? And I think for a guy to approach a girl, it's that fear of rejection. And I also was thinking about it, like, why do people turn us down when we try to hook them up? Why is that? And there's a part of me that thinks it's because they're afraid of public rejection. What if I wasn't pretty enough? What if I didn't say the right things? What if she thought that I didn't make enough money? Now, not only am I going to get rejected, by her, but she's probably going to go and tell my friend that tried to hook us up why it didn't work out. And I think unintentionally, it's that fear of rejection, right? Because you guys do that swipe thing, right? What is it called? Tinder or something?
Tender, that's it.
What is it called? Whatever, that, right? And it's crazy because the people that don't want us to hook them up, they're on every single dating site, right? And I'm totally fine with dating sites. There's great ones out there. I know people that I love that got married through one. That's fine, I love it. But
if they want to raise their hand, that's okay too.
But there is, there's more willingness to accept rejection in private through a swipe than publicly when we got to be held accountable to it. So how do we fix this? And the answer is going to sound cliche, but know who you are in Christ. Know who you are as an individual. If you know that you are okay, that you're not perfect, and he tells us we're accepted, we're okay, then, when I'm rejected, I'm not going to take it personal. I'm going to say, it just didn't work out. I know great people that dated other great people. They didn't work out. And, the first thing people say is, who was crazy? We're all crazy, right? It doesn't have to be that somebody went wrong. It could just mean that they're going to marry other two great people, right? So get over yourself. Get over the rejection of it. Learn to accept who you are and be good with that, right? Because I think that when you have that fear in the way, then you're really preventing yourself from meeting your significant other. You could be, I should say. You have a much higher success rate being introduced by somebody that knows both of you than just by your best foot forward on a profile page.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, so the next myth. Okay, so you guys are much younger than us. The whole.
Ask any questions first?
No,
are we going
questions
that?
are at the end.
Oh.
Yeah. These guys will get so sidetracked we won't even finish.
Okay. You guys, are you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. So, all right, so you guys are much younger than us. So this whole "you complete me" thing, right? Does anyone know what movie started all of that? So John knows because he's old like me. It's okay. He's Jerry Maguire? Anybody? You guys, nobody? Okay, so anyways, there's this whole myth like "you complete me," right? And that is blatantly false. Okay? Because, and again, what do we look to? We look to the Bible. Whenever we have questions, we look to the Bible. So Genesis 2:24 says, Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So we've got this whole society out there that thinks that I'm out there looking for like my better half, right? And then once I come across her, she's just going to complete me and it's going to be great. Well, the reality of it is it's not 0.5 plus 0.5 equals 1, right? In reality, it's 1 plus 1 equals 1. And it's one of those biblical mysteries that you'll never understand, right? But you just have to wrap your mind around it because that's exactly how it happens. And I will tell you, over the years of serving and seeing young couples do stupid things, I personally have a little bit of beef with Hollywood, okay? Because there's one thing that is just like, if there's one thing that I could change, it would be romantic comedies. Because romantic comedies are doing you guys so wrong. And it's the same storyline. It doesn't matter what movie you're watching, right? Good girl, right? Sometimes a little bit on the dorky side, right? And then she meets the bad boy, and the bad boy's a total jerk in the movie, right? And you're like, man, this guy is horrible, right? But then what happens? He falls in love with the good girl, even over the other girls, okay? And then when he falls in love with the good girl, what happens to him? He's a great guy, like the best guy ever, right? And I just want to tell all of you ladies that that's not real, like at all. Like it's never been real. Like they script that stuff. Do you know why they script that stuff? Like they write out a script, people are acting, right? And then they record it and they, release the movie. And do you know why? Because you guys eat it up. And I'm telling you now, the problem is look, good for them, right? Like they're making a ton of money off you guys. But the reality of it is, my biggest problem is you guys think that that's real life. And you guys think that that's possible. And it will never be possible, right? There's a reason why it's an appealing story, and it's because it's a fairy tale. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to tell you guys and this is a hard pill to swallow, but you guys just have to kind of accept it. And it's, what you see is what you get. And when you're dating, especially for girls, I've seen so many girls date optimistically. Like they're hoping that just around the corner, that guy's going to change into, what they're really kind of looking for. And one of the things, and I hear all of the time from the girls, and may God for, if I talk to one more girl and I say, what do you see in that guy? And she says, he has such a good heart. Okay, so it's not just me? Okay, because you say it has such a good heart. And I say, no, the Bible says a heart is deceitful, okay? Like, nobody has a good heart. Like, we all have bad. I have a bad heart. She has a good heart. I have a bad heart. But it's a certain thing where, dude, what you see is what you get, right? And people, you should never marry someone expecting change, right? If you're a girl. Because, the phrase is women marry men hoping they do change, and men marry women hoping they don't. And in the end of it, we're all disappointed. You were fun when we first got married. Now we got these kids, and you're so responsible, and and all of this other stuff. But all joking aside, and we have to realize that this is real life, and especially for the girls, what you see is what you get. Don't missionary date, right? Don't date hoping they change. Don't take 1% of them and ignore the 99 because you think if they just loved me more, it doesn't work that way.
I remember, I know that you're saying this specific situation was with a guy, one of our friends, and I remember he had had this change, revelation of getting closer to God and whatnot, and he met this girl who's super cute, and he ended up dating her, and we're like, no, what are you doing? She doesn't even go to church. I think it's a bad idea. And, he was insistent, so I would invite her to Bible study. Well, long story short, they got married, and she used to tell me, baby steps, baby steps. And Never got there. I don't even think they, unfortunately, they don't even come for Christmas or Easter. The thing is this, I think we go into marriage with really good intentions of, I hear this a lot, we read the Bible together, we're getting closer to God together. I'm like, so I usually follow it up with your typical Sunday school question of, do you read the Bible on your own? No, because we've kind of been doing it together and we're like growing together. Okay, what changes have you made in your own spiritual walk that you see, or that he's made in his own spiritual walk that you see that has changed? Well, not really, but we're doing this together. It's never gonna happen, okay? Because Peter said it very well. Unfortunately, you learn early on in marriage that the person that changes is actually yourself. When you're trying so hard to change your partner, it doesn't happen. You change, and in turn, they change, right? But that's between them and God. So if we go and we're depending our relationship with God depends on the relationship that you have with the other person, it's gonna fail. Because the only one that can fully complete you is God alone. And I think that a lot of times as women, we get a little insecure, right? We look for the person to make us full and feel complete, right? This is the whole thing about completing me. And we'll look to the spouse, we'll look to the boyfriend, whatever it is, and we'll try to get that security from them. But they were never meant to fill these needs. And so what happens is it creates friction and it creates a lot of uncertainty within the relationship. And then you take that mentality and you actually take it into your marriage, but it kind of transforms a little bit to this whole 50-50. Everybody here, I'm sure, have heard that marriage is 50-50. It's actually a lie. It's actually 100-100. We're not meant to complete each other, because if I am, I'm gonna look at Peter, I'm like, hey, you were 30%. Pick up your, slack. It doesn't work like that. It's I give my full 100, he gives his full 100, because we're not depending on each other.
And actually, I just want to chime in on that point real quick, because, and I will tell you, just because, we've got a couple years under our belt, we say 100, but why? Because there's some times where I might just not have 50 in me, right? And sometimes the best I got might be 20 or 30. Right, and she fills the gap to get us to 100, right? And there's other times where it could be the other way around. And I will tell you, especially from having kids, one of the things that really kind of was an aha moment is I can have, let's just say they're splitting something, right? They're splitting a donut, and I will literally cut that donut right in the middle, right? And I'll give each kid half of a donut. What's the first thing those kids say?
He got the bigger half.
He got the bigger half. It's they're both saying it, and I'm like, that's literally impossible. But I'm going to tell you, it's a problem of perspective. And I will tell you, the most biased person in your relationship is you. So I'm going to be looking and I'm going to say, man, I'm doing so much right now. I am so over my 50% that Christina needs to kind of step it up. But I could really be at 20 or 30%. Why? Because I'm biased. So this whole mentality of this 50-50, no, we were both called to die to ourselves daily. And it's really 100% on me, 100% on her, and when we're both given 100%, then we're going to be okay. So the next myth. Let's get physical. Do you know what this one's about? Everyone? Okay, if you're taking out notes, I'm going to drop something on you real quick, so I encourage you to write this down. And if you're not taking notes, write this down. So obviously this is false, right? Sin happens when we try to meet a God-given desire outside of God's intended design. I'm going to say that one more time, and I want you guys just kind of let it sink in real quick. Sin happens when we try to meet a God-given desire outside of God's intended design. And before I really go into the actual relationship aspect of this talk, I just have to mention, hooking up is wrong. If you guys are just physically hooking up, there's no place for that. I refuse to spend even time explaining it because I think everybody knows better. Can we agree on that? Okay. Now, I feel like the real struggle is when people are in a committed relationship and a committed relationship that could even be heading towards marriage. And the thought is, what's the big deal? Right? Like, what's the big deal? We love each other. We're committed to each other. We're either probably going to get married or we are getting married. But I just want you guys to understand something, that anything physical before marriage is not love. We'll put the tag on it. We'll put the name tag on it, right? Say, but I love them so much. It's not love. If it's before marriage, it is not love. Do you know what it is? Lust, 100% of the time. 100% of the time. And look, if you don't believe me, I'm married. You are not. I am right. Okay? Simple as that. Abuna will give me an amen on that one if, yeah. So I'm going to tell you, who likes lighting a fire at the house? Right? Like, you ever turn the fireplace on in the living room? Could be a little bit chilly outside. So I'm going to turn on the fireplace, enjoy it. You know, it's scenic, provides heat, it's relaxing. You know, maybe even bust out some marshmallows, toast some marshmallows, have yourself some s'mores, right? It's great, right? Everyone loves a fireplace, a fire in a fireplace. So let me ask you something. Let's say I was going to go ahead and move that fire just 5 feet outside of the fireplace. Same fire. How do you feel about that? Anyone else comfortable with that? Well, it's still a fire, still going to provide heat. The problem is, now it's going to burn your house down, right? That same fire in the right spot was a beautiful thing, right? It was intended to be there. And now it's going somewhere it was never intended to be. And it's going to destroy everything. And that's exactly what that is. That's trying to meet a God-given desire outside of God's intended design. And I will tell you that I believe that this is a big problem in the church today. And the reason it's a big problem is because we have God-given desires and we are pushing marriage until later and later and later and later. True? And I think that if I had to look at all of the areas of your life that people pack the most baggage into, like, this is it. This is an area that if you let this area get outside of God's intended plan, it's going to seriously affect your marriage. And I think it's where the most bags are packed. I believe it's where people bring in the most regret into their relationships and also ultimately into their marriage. And I just want to say one thing, right? That Christ's blood can forgive anything. There's nothing that you might have done in your past that cannot be forgiven. Like, Christ's blood is enough for that, by the grace of God. Don't think you're too broken. Don't think you're too used. Don't think any of that stuff, because that's a lie. You could be redeemed from anything that you've done in your past. But I want to tell you, the choice is yours whether or not you're going to keep doing it into your present and your future. But I encourage you to stop packing that bag. Stop packing that bag, because it will affect you for years to come. Because if Satan can get you to fulfill that desire outside of its time, if he can get you to start looking at, like, the wrong places, the wrong people, the wrong way, the wrong level, at the wrong time, then he has you exactly where he wants you. Exactly where he wants you. And I'm going to tell you that that is the biggest area of your life where I see a lot of people having false idols. And there are these false idols that they keep going back to worship, and they don't know how to stop.
I think it's, there's a quote that says that men give love to get sex, and women give sex to get love. We're built very differently, and God, obviously this is generally speaking, and God makes us very different, but men tend to be more physical, and women tend to partake in that act to feel loved, right? And so what women sometimes feel is, if I just give him a little bit more, then I'm gonna, he's gonna love me more. He's gonna be more affectionate with me, right? And then kind of falls into that bad cycle, because what will the guy do? He'll give her a little bit more love to get that, and it just keeps going, and it's a trap, right? But the hard truth is this: if he's courting you, if he's seriously thinking about marrying you, he may not necessarily be trying, like he may actually try to be holding himself back from that, but the girls that, we all know that person that has dated a guy for 9 years, 6 years, whatever it may be, you know, and it doesn't work out, and it breaks my heart, because when you come to, and that's not saying they all end up extremely physical, but when they come to reconsider a wife, right, somebody they want to marry, all of a sudden the thing that you've been sacrificing to feel loved is now held against you. Right? I was listening to this podcast that I really didn't want to mention because it's a little hurtful, but he encouraged me, so here we go. So it was a podcast I was listening to, and it was a guy had cheated on his wife. And they're sitting there in therapy, and the therapist, and they're going back and forth, and the therapist just stops and asks the wife, "When did you guys sleep together?" Now, they're Christians now, so this was before that. So she says, "We slept together before marriage." So the therapist stops and he says, "Oh, so you showed him that it was okay to have sex outside of marriage." Oof. And I was so upset hearing that, because obviously there's never a reason, ever, now, this is not to excuse the guy. And the lady says, it was so upsetting to hear it, but there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth to that. Because here's the thing, in marriage, there is no lust. It's impossible. Lust means desiring something you can't have. And your spouse is for you. So if you don't fix this problem beforehand, and if you're giving into, and you're feeding his lust now, something or someone will feed it after their marriage, right? Because Satan will do everything in his power to get you to sleep with that person before marriage, and everything in his power to get you not to sleep with them after marriage. And it's the cycle that continues.
So I will tell you that this is one of those really applicable parts that there should be takeaways from this talk, okay? And there's advice that Christina and I would like to share with you guys, especially because we are in a society that everyone around us tells us, hey, it's all good, right? Like, you do you. Like, don't let anybody say this, don't let anybody say that. And you compound it with the fact that you think that I love this person. You compound it with the fact that I think this is the person I'm going to marry. So you got to have some kind of like boundaries in place to make sure that you don't end up in a situation you're going to regret. The first one is set the right boundaries early. If you're in a relationship, set the right boundaries like super early, right? Because those boundaries need to be in place before things get hot. Right? Because if you've already, disembarked, right? All judgment's out the window. So you guys got to have an early on conversation to set some boundaries and make sure you don't do that, right? The second thing that you guys all need to keep in mind is we need to build on things that are important. And I'm sad to say that a lot of people build on this. They build on physical attraction, chemistry, whatever. And I'm going to tell you that the temptation is to build on the wrong things at the wrong times in the wrong places. Like, that's not going to do anything for you. That's not going to do, like, you cannot build on physical things. And actually, if you build on physical things, I guarantee you that is actually destructive. You're not building at all. We put way too much value on that stuff and not enough value on the stuff that actually matters. All right, so guys, we're on myth 6, okay? We're almost there. This one's going to be an interesting one. Men only want quiet homemakers. So, you can imagine who thought of that one, okay? That's what all of the girls say. What do you guys think? True or false? We'll get there.
True or false, you gotta explain. Like a housewife, like somebody.
Everyone thinks that they want, like that real passive, quiet woman who's probably going to walk into church with a sharp on and not say a single thing, and that's what the women are like. Well, that's not me, and that's why I'm still single. Well, false. That is not why you're still single, right? Guys are turned off by women who want to lead. So let me unwrap that a little bit. So remember when I said, the Bible is our book, it is our roadmap. So what are men called to do? Head of house, right? But more than just head of house. What's that?
So Tabana guy says it.
Tabana guy says it. Yes. Men were born to lead, right? We were wired to lead, right? We are going to be the head, right? That is how God designated it. We were created to do that. So when a guy comes across a girl that's a little too aggressive, it's a deterrent. Guys, would you guys agree with that? It's okay. You guys can't see that. All the guys are kind of like, yeah, that's definitely it, right? No I am woman, hear me roar stuff, right? Like, it's a deterrent, right? I just want to be crystal clear. It doesn't mean that the woman is too successful. Guys don't mind that. It doesn't mean that they're too educated. Guys don't mind that, right? Doesn't mean that they're too much of a go-getter. Guys don't mind that. What do guys mind? Too aggressive. I'll be the first one to raise my hand and be like, look, I would love to be a trophy husband. You can go out and make as much money as you want. I will not be intimidated at all, okay? But like, that's not what it is. It's the aggressiveness that guys are like not feeling, right? And I'm going to tell you why this is such a threat for guys. Because as we were called to be leaders, do you guys know what guys' biggest temptation is? Our biggest temptation is to be passive. It's to be too passive, right? You see it in the garden in Genesis 3, right? Because Eve goes to Adam and she says, hey man, let's eat this fruit. What should have Adam said? No, we got all these other trees. Like, why are we going to eat that one, right? But what did he do? He was passive, right? And he fell into passivity, right? So an aggressive girl inherently just rubs the guy the wrong way because he knows his role. So he knows what he needs to do, and he wants to marry someone who will allow him to do it. Now, I will tell you, the same way that a guy's temptation is to be too passive, a girl's temptation is to be too aggressive or controlling, right? And I will tell you that is biblically documented. Okay, so if you look at the curse, Genesis 3, verse 16, it said, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. It's right there. And I will tell you, and you would agree, that is the biggest temptation. Right? Would you agree?
I'll talk about mine.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to tell you, ladies, for the ladies who do have a control issue, who like to be in control, like the struggle's real. Like, we're not discounting that, but you have to understand that it's something that we got to work through. Or not we, it's something that you ladies have to work through.
Well, there's got to be wisdom with that. No, they say that you marry your opposite. I didn't. I married my twin. We're both strong-willed type A personalities, leadership type people. And I remember early on in my marriage, we would get into conflict, and I'm like, no, this is the way it's going to happen. And we would just constantly, like, he wouldn't listen. And so I remember where we were at. It was in the family room, and he looked at me and says, hey, if you think you're going to wear the pants in this marriage, it's not going to happen. You know, marry that guy. And I remember, like, my mouth dropped, thinking, oh my God, I'm losing all control. I wanted to be in control, right? And it's funny because I knew that I wanted a God-fearing man, and I knew that a God-fearing man is the leader, right? And I knew I wanted somebody in the driver's seat of my life. But that means I had to get in the passenger side, right? And it was really scary. And I remember just having to feel like, okay, I've got to figure this out, because if I'm heading on this direction, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it happily. And so I remember thinking, okay, what's my role? What's my role? I opened the Bible, and in the Bible it says that the Lord, in Genesis 2:18, it says that the Lord God said, it is not good for a man that a man should be alone, and he will make a helper comparable to him. A helper. That is an assistant job. Put me in as coach, I can't assistant. It was so hard for me to grasp and to understand, until I realized, like, who else was named the helper in the Bible? Who else has that role? Not my specific role, but who is referred to as a helper? Holy Spirit. Yeah, Sean. The Holy Spirit is referred to as the helper, right? And I'm like, what is the role of the Holy Spirit? Well, he moves us, right? He moves us, he nudges us, he brings us to the Father, and he brings us to repentance, right? And I'm not suggesting by any means that I am Peter's Holy Spirit, because I already tried that and it didn't work out, right? But what I'm suggesting is, what an honor to come along the person that God has planned for you, to support his role, and to be a helper. Women are naturally really good at reading people's emotions, right? We have 4 boys, and Peter can come in and out of the room, may not even realize one of them's having a bad day. I just look at them, and I know immediately, okay, something's up. And I'll probe and I'll talk. Next thing you know, I'll shoot him a text. Nathaniel, don't tell your brothers we do this. I'll shoot him a text, and I'll tell him, hey, like, check up on Elijah. You know, he's off today. And what I'm doing is I'm teaching him, I'm supporting his role, and he'll go and he'll take out the kid, and he talks to him, right? I remember early on, my mom, and you guys are young enough to where you still get in trouble. When my friends got in trouble, their mom would hide from their father because dad was maybe cuckoo and would take it out on them, right? So my girlfriends, they would get in trouble, and I'd be like, oh my God, what'd your dad do? It's like, oh, my mom didn't tell my dad. That did not happen in my household. The second I got in trouble, you better believe my dad knew about it, okay? It was so upsetting, and maybe you guys can relate to that. It was so upsetting, and I remember one time I was like, why do you do that? You know, we don't have a close relationship, and it's your fault, because you go and you tell dad everything. And she said to me, and by God's grace, my parents are very happily married, she says to me, your dad and I took a vow years ago that I will never hide anything from him, because we're a team in the way that we are raising and guiding this family. And it spoke to me volumes. I mean, to this day, I do the same thing. There's nothing I can ever help because I am his helper and I support him. So, of course, there's many different ways for that role, right? You could support him emotionally, spiritually. I'm just giving you guys an idea, but if you take that role on with that sense of humility, then you're able to look at it as, I'm not inferior. I honestly don't want his role. There's many times we're making a decision, and I say, here's what my fears are, here's what your fears are, you pray about this, you let me know how you're guiding our family. That's a big weight. That's a big weight, and I don't want that, but I trust that God is gonna lead him to lead us.
And on that note, I do want to say, in that Genesis 2:18, it says, I will make him a helper comparable to him. So just because the role's different doesn't mean it's lesser. Amen? All right. So myth 7. We're almost there, guys. I need to be more financially stable. This one, again, for all of the ladies out there. So who says this one? The guys, right? All of the guys. Yeah, all of these guys are saying, well, I just want to wait. I want to become more established. I want this. I want that. And false. And here, this is a sad truth, right? If that is your stance, you have another God on your throne. Is that a capital G or a little g?
Yeah.
What are the remedial cholas? You have an option of just staying quiet. Like, you don't have... Because if that's what's really, really important to you, then you have a different God on your throne. You know, I will tell you, and Christina and I we're on the same page of this, that young love is a beautiful thing, right? There's something beautiful about growing together. Everything that Christina and I have today, like, we built it together over the years. Like, this is all our stuff. I remember when I was getting married, one of my coworkers asked me, and he says, hey man, like, are you gonna have a prenup? And I was like, a prenup? Nah, man, I don't need that. And he's like, why? He's like, I don't have anything. Like, what am I gonna... I don't have any of my own assets. There's nothing I can do with that, right? But I'm gonna tell you, like, don't wait to start your life and your family just to acquire more stuff. Like, stuff doesn't matter. Like, I was broke as a joke, but those are beautiful times, right? We look back at those years, and those are like some of the funnest years, right? And I'm going to tell you and I think that guys feel this way, but a part of it is because sometimes that's what the ladies are looking for. And I want to tell the ladies something too. Date for character, not for possessions. Okay? Because it's not a man's stuff that will make you happy, but it's his virtues. So if you're a lady and that stuff's important to you, I'm telling you, you might be measuring with the wrong ruler.
I want to say something to that. I don't know if I'm supposed to go right now or not.
It is your turn.
Oh, okay. I want to say something to that. I do talk to a lot of guys. They'll come over and we just hang out, the youth. And they do hear women say, I want a 3-carat. I want a 2-carat.
It might be 4 now. It keeps getting,
It
keeps
might
going.
be.
Yeah, it keeps getting
I'm
bigger.
way behind if that's the case. That puts so much pressure on a guy, right? And then that's that same guy that says, well, I can't get married until I have a house, until I have X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, the stuff will come, meet that person. So I will say, I do believe that there's a lot of pressure that also comes from the female, but it's that same female that's upset that they're not
she
getting
ain't
proposed.
getting a ring at all.
Yeah, it's a cycle, guys. Okay, back to what I was gonna say. Okay, ladies, raise your hand, because we're ambitious too. Raise your hand if you want to get married and if family is a priority for you as well. Don't be shy. We're all here, so we all want to.
It's a dating talk, but of course none of these girls want to get married.
Okay. Hey, look, for me, it was important to get married, and I wanted that, okay? Now, keep your hand up if becoming more successful as a career woman is more important to you than being married, okay? If career is more important, raise your hand. If being married more is important, put your hand down.
All the hands disappeared. For everybody on live stream, all the hands disappeared.
So, if your hand stayed up, this doesn't apply to you, but if it didn't, don't give up what you really want for what you really want right now, okay? It's really good to have ambition and goals and careers, but it's not good when you put it above what God has created to do, is find someone to get married and to move in that direction. I sometimes will talk to some girlfriends and I'll tell them, some younger girls, and I'll tell them, hey, I got this nice guy for you, like, consider, blah, blah. No, Tina, I can't think about that right now. I'm gonna leave to this state. Or I'm gonna, start residency here. And it's just like, you sure you don't wanna just give it a shot? He's a really sweet guy. You guys could do long distance. No. I'm focused right now, and I admire that. I really do admire the ambition and the focus, but it's just kind of scary because what happens is you graduate, you got this amazing degree, and you go from work, home, liturgy, repeat. And it's so hard to find someone. And I just broke my heart the other day. I was, with someone, and she said, I just think I missed my time. And so I don't want you to be deceived to think that getting married, it's either getting married or having a career. It's not the case at all. You can have both. I have family members that got married in residency school, okay? I asked her permission, but my sister, she got married, had 3 amazing young men in here with our HTC youth group, and
If they can raise their hands, that would be great. They can validate the story, just so you can see that the story, it's not made up, it's a real story.
They are amazing. She had them, and then she continued her education. She became, she got her degree, she's PA, and she had them both, right? But the priority, what was really important for her, was to have a family, and she got to do both. I will say there is beauty in getting married when you have nothing and you're building your life together. I remember we did all sorts of dumb classes together to find a hobby that none of them carried through, and cooked horrible meals, and it was fine, and it was fun. We grew up together almost. Now, not too young, because there are a couple high schoolers in here, so let's put things in perspective.
Let's just clear that up. Nathaniel, we're talking to you. You're nowhere close. Okay.
So I do want to be sensitive to the fact that it is God's timing. And what God willed for us to get married early does not mean that he wills it for another person to get married. His timing is perfect and it's amazing. But the point is, do not let a good opportunity go because of something that you want right now.
I agree. And the thing is, because God could be sending you the perfect spouse. And if you're not open to it at the time, you can miss it, like blatantly. And if that perfect spouse goes and moves on and finds somebody else, and you kind of circle back around, you're going to realize that, man, I might have missed out on something really, really good. So, how many myths do we have? 8. So we're on the last one. Congratulations, you guys made it. So, they need to meet all my checklist items. I will tell you, this is one that Christina and I hear a lot, because when we'll bring up somebody, they're like, oh no, but this is what I'm looking for, right? False. It's okay to have preferences, but don't make them the criteria, okay? And actually, afterwards, I kind of rethought that, and I said, actually, a criteria is not a bad thing, okay? Just not the way that you guys are doing it. Because typically, when you start talking to people and you bring somebody up, and they start bringing up their deal breakers are just really stupid. Okay? For example, nah, man, he's got to be 6 foot. We are Egyptian, okay? 90% of us are not 6 foot, okay? So we just have to get that out, right? Tall, dark, and handsome. Like I said, we could be tall, dark, and handsome. Okay, but we'd be no, we want tall, dark, handsome, we want smart, nice car, doctor, whatever, this number of income, 3-carat ring. We have all of these things that we're looking for. And I'm going to tell you, the thing that's frustrating is you guys will get so caught up on those criteria, but the important stuff, that's not a criteria, right? It just blows my mind, right? Because you should have criteria about the things that really matter. For example, you're going to be doing life together. This is someone that you're going to be joined to, God willing, for the rest of your life. 50, 60, 70, I don't know how many years. And you care if they're 6 foot, but you don't care if they love Jesus? Does that sound right? There's all of these things, right? Again, back to the missionary dating thing, right? We care what kind of car they drive. We care about how much money they make, but we don't care who they follow. And one of my things that just kind of it kills me, right? But if me and my spouse, if we don't have the same calling in our life, how are we going to walk hand in hand to the same place? And it kills me. I remember I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about prerequisites to dating and stuff, right? And he says, look, the best advice I can give you is just run as fast as you can towards Christ. Just run as fast as you can towards Christ. And in your peripheral vision, if you see somebody who's running with you to the same place, it might be okay to strike up that conversation. Because that's the stuff that matters. Right? Think about it. You're going to be doing life together. Think about the way they live. Think about their family values. Think about the way that you two communicate. Because that's huge. Right? Your outlook on life, the priorities, how devoted they are to Christ, the church. Are they servants? Right? Because that's the stuff we should be looking at, not the superficial stuff. Because I will tell you, when your kid throws up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to care if they're 6 foot or not. Right? You're not going to care what kind of car they drive. What you're going to care about is the virtue, the heart, whether or not that they're going to get out of bed and clean up the vomit. Right? Because if they don't, you will. But you want the heart. You want the servant's heart, the person that you want to do life with. Look at their character. And I'll tell you, for the ladies, if you are out on a date, pay very close attention to how he treats the server. Always pay attention to how he treats his mother. Pay attention to how he treats other people. And one of the things that kills me is when a girl is dating a guy who's a jerk, but she says, oh, he doesn't treat me that way. Yet, because it will come, right? Because that's going to tell you a lot. And then also I'll tell you, don't play hard to get. Be hard to get. And there's a very, very big difference there, right? Because value what God has put in front of you, if you truly have value for yourself, and you know your value and what God said about you and what he has for you and what he wants for you, you won't give it away cheaply. Look for important things, right? Because a lot of the time we enter in these relationships and we don't even think about what God wants to do with us. We don't think about his purpose for us. We don't think about where he wants us to where he wants to take our lives and the plans that he has for us. Because if we did think about those things, we would protect it. And we would know that he has a purpose for us. And his glory and his calling and all of these things. And if we really, really believe that, then it would affect every single one of our decisions, especially who we join for the rest of our lives. But when we don't, we give it away cheaply, and it costs us a lot in the big picture.
I think it's just reiterating the same thing, the difference between deal breakers and type. I think it's healthy to have a list, right? And look at it, pray over it. See, like God, am I being too picky here? I know for me, a deal breaker was I didn't want another person that sat in the pews. For me, I wanted a servant. I wanted somebody that was committed to God another level, because I looked around me and I realized quickly that my parents were the minority, that a lot of the marriages around us were not successful. And I knew that that's what I was up against. So, that was a must for me. A type, sorry guys, I keep forgetting about this mic. A type was a handy guy, didn't get it. It was somebody that loves the outdoors. I think he has allergies to nature. I didn't get that. But what I got was a God-fearing man that has done an amazing job leading our family and continues to lead our family, and it's challenging, right? I say this, and I've said this so many times to young girls. Don't even waste your time with a guy that will not submit to God. Not one date. Don't give him the time of day, because here's the thing. We're emotional, and we get attached. And once you do that, and once you open that door, you find yourself in a relationship that you might later have to break up and unpack that in marriage, right? I'm going to end my part with a story of a friend of mine. Every wife, I think, has probably asked her husband this. Would you ever be unfaithful to me? Would you ever cheat on me? She calls me laughing. She's like, I just got the most unromantic answer to that question, but the most secure I've ever felt. So she says to her husband, would you ever be unfaithful? And her husband says, no way. And so she goes, really, why? Tavan, she's expecting because you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, whatever. He says, because I fear and love God. So she tells me, while I hated that I was not part of the equation, I felt so secure that his love for God was what's going to keep him, right? Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Find a man that is willing to give up and truly love with a pure heart, not take your innocence, but to give your innocence to you.
So in conclusion, the words that you guys have been waiting for. I know that you guys might be sitting here and you might be looking at Christina and I, and you say, hey, these guys have kind of figured it out, right? Part of you guys might maybe might look at us and be like, hey, I wouldn't mind having something like that, right? But what I'm going to tell you is you're just looking in from the outside, right? What you don't see is you don't see the last 17 years of hard work, right? You don't see, disagreements that we had to work through. You didn't see the hardship, all of that other stuff. The reality of it is marriage itself, it is not easy. Would you say the last 17 years were easy?
No, very hard.
But was it worth it?
100%.
I had 1,000%. Oh, actually, okay. So, but to be honest with you, marriage is hard, and if you work at it, you can push through, right? There's many times that we could have not made it, but we're committed to each other. We've always been committed to each other, and we committed that many, many years ago that even when things got hard, we would work through it. And I will tell you that one of the things that everyone should be open to, it should be open to a lot of hard work, and even if it gets there, even some counseling, right? It pains me when I see couples who are going through a bunch of hard stuff, and I say, I really think that you need somebody else to kind of come in and kind of hold your hands through this. And they say, I'm not doing it. And I say, look, bro, with all due respect, your car is stuck in a ditch, and you're the one that got it there, and you are not going to pull it out by yourself, right? So you guys have to realize that it's not all easy all the time. But if you want a marriage that's going to work, you have to work hard, right? You cannot give up. And one of the things that a lot of the times people totally miss is, what is the purpose of marriage, right? Is it happiness? It's not, right? Is it to reflect the gospel? It does reflect the gospel, but it's not the purpose of it. The purpose of marriage is sanctification. Two imperfect people who will learn to sacrifice for each other and to live selflessly. And that's not easy. And that takes hard work, and it takes dying to yourself daily, right? Because if marriage done correctly can be heaven on earth. Marriage done incorrectly can be, I'm not going to say it, but you guys know what I'm going to say, right? And it all starts with where you are right now. It all starts with, by the grace of God, you guys have not made that decision yet. Right now, you guys are still in a position where you can work on your foundation, right? Because the foundation is the most important part of the relationship, right? Matthew 7 talks about two houses, one built on rock and another built on sand. We all know that story? Well, the aha moment is one day I was remembering that story and I went back to reread it, right? And the thing that I often forget is the storm hit both houses. I don't know what it was. I remember that the house on rock, it was good, right? And then the storm hit the one that was built on the sand. No. The storm hit both houses, and it hit them both just as bad. So don't think that if you marry the right person, or if you do everything right, and you followed all the directions and you're following the blueprint, that the storm's not going to come. I promise you that the storm will come, right? And I will tell you, your Christian walk, you are promised tribulation. You are promised hardship. If you think that the Christian walk gives you a pass on all of that, then you're not reading the Bible. But the house built on the solid foundation, it's the one that withstood the storm. And that's what we pray for. So the question is tonight, the first week of this series, right, is what are you going to build on? What are you going to build on? How important is it to you, right? Make no mistake, because, the storm's coming, and the storm will hit. But if you're built on a solid foundation, you're going to be okay. And then the last thing I just wanted to add is I'm not naive into thinking that everyone in this church right now is single. And some of you guys might feel very, very convicted right now by some of the stuff that me and Christina are talking about. And some of you guys know that you have a hard conversation to have because you might need to get out of that relationship. And I'm going to encourage you that if that's what God's telling you, that you need to do it. I was just reading in James 4, and I think, all right, it's in the Bible somewhere. But it was talking about how God's plans are not our plans. Right? And God's thoughts are not our thoughts. God's ways are not our ways. But he says that the heaven is above the earth, and his ways are higher. So if you're stuck in a relationship and you know that relationship's not good for you, I urge you to get out of it. Because God will give you something higher. Don't settle. Amen? And the other thing that you need to do is look for people who've been to Africa. Because we all know that people who've been to Africa are great people. So the Africa group, can you raise your hands real quick? Anyone? There we go. Okay, you guys don't want to raise your hands? Okay, sorry. I was just giving them, they were just with me in Africa a couple of months ago, so I told them I'd give them a hard time. So Mina, Sarah, Daniel. Where's other Sarah? Is she there somewhere? Where's other? She didn't come? Okay, so nobody talk to Sarah. She's who else am I missing? Nathan, Jason. Who else?
Did I do it right?
All right.
Okay, so do you want to present it? Oh, present.
All right, so I guess that there's this thing now where you can ask us questions. So if you want to text relationship goals 358 to 22333, text it over, and I guess it's going to pop up somewhere.
And feel free to also just ask out loud as well.
This way's anonymous, so we won't know who's asking the crazy questions. If you have a non-crazy question, you can just raise your hand and ask it that way as well. 3?
Yeah.
Man, you're right off the bat. Okay. Yes.
So how is that different from engaging to someone or being in engagement?
Well, keep in mind, we're not talking about just like what I was talking about with, or what Christina, now you're attacking my wife, but what she was talking about was the definition of dating, which is just like an entertainment, physical sort of thing, right? So it's not that that is wrong, but when we are pursuing somebody from the opposite sex for marriage, that is courting. So what we need is we can have friends, right? But I will tell you, when things are stepping out of the friendship zone, then it needs to be for the purpose of marriage, okay? Now, I did not have a lot of female friends that I would go out with one-on-one. So my female friends were usually in a group setting. So if I was ever gonna have a one-on-one outing with a female, chances are that was not like a friendship sort of thing. Does that kind of make sense between the differentiation? Okay. I know that was only one. You got 2 more. Go for it.
So you talked about how we don't need to be financially stable to
Yeah.
be in a relationship. But even if your partner is the person who is like okay with it, but isn't there a factor of like family? Because when you go to ask like her dad for permission to get into the relationship or like to get married, they're gonna ask you like, are you financially stable? Can you take care of my daughter?
Okay.
Isn't that important?
Okay. Do you want to answer that? You want me to answer it?
It's up to you.
Is that-
Repeat the question in the mic.
The question was, so let's say that you're not financially stable, but you have to go, which I think is hilarious in Arabic. The term is you have to go it'addim, right, to the lady's family. Which, if you the direct translation of it'addim is apply, so it's almost like a job interview. So wouldn't they care, right? So ironically, there's a 2-part answer to this. Number 1, depending on the family, yeah, if they care a lot about that stuff, then chances are going into that, if you broke, you probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, right? Because you know what you're getting yourself into. But second of all, I would say that as long as you can show that you can provide like a living, like I wasn't rich, but at the same time we could live on our own, right? Like I'm not expecting anyone to basically go with Eddim and tell them, hey, we're going to move in with my parents, you know, and we're going to live off of love, right? The bigger problem is when you have people who are in a financial position to get married, but they still want to acquire wealth before they do that. You know what I mean? So you probably have some.
No,
You wanna-
I
Oh, you have one?
mine.
Okay.
That was good.
Did I answer the question? Okay. Will you have a third one? Last one.
Wait, hold on.
So you said that you went, like in the very beginning, you said that you started, when you started thinking about dating at a certain age. What kind of age is that? Like, what's
This is a great question. Okay, and I don't even remember saying that earlier on. But there was actually this story that I was kind of joking around. Like in my mind, I was wondering, am I going to tell the story? Because it is like the essence of that question, right? So we're going to go on a little ride right now. So it was 2007. I'm distracted now too. Not on social media. Okay, anyways. I got totally sidetracked. Okay, it was 2007, and the GMC Yukon just came out. They just redesigned it from the previous year. Okay, so I remember. I was thinking about telling this story. So I remember the 2007 Yukon came out, and I was like, dude, I love that 2007 Yukon. That is a beautiful SUV. And I looked at my wife, and I was sharing that with her, and she said, hey, go test drive it, right? And I said, well, we don't need an SUV right now. We only have Nathaniel, right? So I don't really see why I would test drive the SUV, because it really, only one of two things is going to happen, right? I'm either going to go and I'm going to like it and I'm going to go and not like it, and it really didn't matter because I wasn't going to buy it anyways, or I am going to go like it, and then that could put me in a position to make a bad decision because I'm going to drop 50 grand on an SUV that I don't really need, right? So I said, I'm not going to go look at it, right? But do you know what happened in 2009?
What according to the recession?
So in 2009, there was a recession.
Mystery class, guys.
I'm telling you, okay. I'm going to just remind you of the option of not saying anything, okay? It just sometimes I know short-term memory, but in 2009, we had our second child, and I went and I bought the Yukon, right? I went and I test drove it. It fit my need. I could financially support it, and I bought it, right? And I look at dating like that, right? If you're not in the market, you have no business to be out there test driving cars. When you have a need and can afford it, then that should be when you're out there test driving cars. Make sense? Okay, actually, I'm not going to say test driving cars. I'm going to say, that was bad. You can start shopping for cars? Is that better? Okay. No test driving. Everyone has to, okay, purchase assets. Okay. Did that make sense though?
I mean,
I can tell you had a follow-up question. Go for it.
no, it's not a follow-up. It's kind of like, because there has to be a certain age where you...
It's not. Actually, I'm going to be honest with you because there's some people at the age of 20, 21 could be ready to be married, right? Like, I'll be honest with you, I was engaged by the age of 23. Raise your hand if you're 23. 23, around 23? Okay, not the ladies. Guys, okay, do you think that you're ready to open up a household? Not at all, right? Okay. No, but here's the thing. It's not an age thing, right? Because it's a maturity thing. It's a maturity thing, and it's where you are in life thing, right? Because at 23, I was already working. I had a job. There's other people, if you're going into like postgraduate, school, you could be 27 and still not making $1 to your name. So it's not an age thing. It's a maturity thing. It's where you are in life thing that kind of matters. Does that make sense? Are we going to go to the iPad, or does anybody else want to raise their hand? We have a lot of questions? You have 30 questions? I don't want to choose them. You want to just...
Nikki, you should answer.
Is it the first?
We're skipping that one. Take it to your confession, Father. No? You want to answer it then?
Wait, go for the. Okay.
What are the physical limits in dating, holding hands and kissing?
I'll let you answer it. But then at the end, we're going to point him to their confession fathers.
Okay, well, definitely pointing. Can you turn off the cameras? Is it hard to remain pure? Is it hard to stop at just holding hands? It's hard. You know, I know we had a lot of boundaries set in place. Don't sit in the car. This is a dumb place to be, right? To just sit in the car. It could lead to things. So, you know, holding hands, okay, there's no harm done when you're engaged, whatever, dating, getting to engagement. But when you start adding other components to it, it's too tempting. It's too hard. So I definitely think you do need to talk to your father of confession for that, but I do know a lot of people that I highly respect did not even kiss until their wedding day. And I know that sounds crazy. But I know it's attainable. And I know people that have done that.
And here's the $1 million question. Is all kissing created equal? Is all kissing created equal, right? Are there different levels of kissing? Right? So the problem is you know how you never get here? By never going there, right? Because the problem is once you open that door, you have no idea where that's going to go, right? Because it's just a slippery slope. And that's why I kind of defer back and say, you know, honestly, talk to your confession father about that, because everyone might deal with that differently. We do know some people who actually did not kiss until their wedding day. And the only thing I can tell you there is you'll never have a regret that way. Now, the other people who have tried to toe the line, and I think that's the $1 million question, right? Everyone, whenever I talk to someone who's dating, they say, hey, exactly how much can I get away with? Mm-hmm. That's really the question, right? It's exactly how much can I dabble in before it becomes wrong, right? And I say, I have no idea. But I will tell you that the closer you get to that line, the more regrets you will have, whether or not you marry that person.
Don't kiss. Okay, I'm just gonna say. How does social media affect relationships, and what's your personal input on it?
Oh, can I just say something that I noticed?
Go for it.
Okay. I believe that this has prevented men from being men. Okay? Straight up. Because when I remember 20 some years ago, if I thought a girl was cute, you know what I had to do? I had to go talk to her. Right? Like I had to actually work up the courage to go strike a conversation with a girl or find a way to get her phone number and actually call her. Okay? What are guys actually, guys, you guys stay silent. Girls, what are these guys doing now? Yeah, they're shooting their shot in your DMs, right? And the funny thing is that is the most cowardly thing I have ever seen a man do. If you actually are interested in a girl, you need, and I'm going to tell you, ladies, you can agree with me if I'm right, but that is your highest probability of success as well, if you work up the courage to go talk to her. Okay? Because an introduction face-to-face is better than 10,000 DMs. Agreed? Now, I'm also going to know, maybe some guys on social media who lack some self-awareness are shooting their shots in places that they are way out of their league. Okay? So a part of it is the fact that, and I feel like with social media, it's become way too easy just to hide behind a screen. So back for us, like let's say that, you know, this nice attractive girl right here, I'd have to kind of like walk up to her. Like it wasn't shooting a shot, right? Like you have to walk up, strike up a conversation. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm Peter, let's go out. Right? Like there was actually a little bit of courtship, you know, like I actually had to talk to her. I had to gauge whether or not there was interest. There was all of these other social cues that you had to kind of pick up on. Right? And I think that that's lost because of social media. So.
And I also think there's a lot of pressure on women to post certain pictures. You got to show that you're having fun. You're outdoor girl. You also got to show your sensitive side. You also got to show, you know, your fashion, whatever. It's all of these posts that I'm looking at, and you're seeking affirmation through it, right? How many likes you're gonna get. And what it happens is the next time you wanna feel good about yourself, you gotta go back there to be affirmed. So I don't necessarily like it. I do know that, you know, I'm a little bit more old school, but I will say you don't need to put yourself out there the way that you're thinking in order for a guy to approach you. Does that get it? What's the next one? Is the odds of being successful?
Yeah, there's a clear typo in that. Yeah. So should we? I think it's just as the odds of having success against you. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. There's a great quote, and it says, if you want to live the way that nobody else lives later, you have to live the way that nobody else lives now. Dave Ramsey. It is Dave Ramsey. Yeah. First thing you said right all night. Yeah, there we go. All right, you still know. You're still shooting at like 25%. So, but I think that's what it is, right? Why is everyone failing? Everyone's failing because they're doing it wrong. Now, do I believe, so actually the statistics, we were just actually talking about this the other day, right? So, Paul, can you share, refresh my memory. Let's say the divorce rate's 50-50, okay? And then?
In the United States, it's 1 out of every 2. Oh, no. In the U.S., it's 1 out of every 3 divorce. California is 1 out of every 2 divorce.
Okay, let me just write. So, in the United States, 1 out of every 3 marriages get divorced. In California, it's 1 out of every 2 marriages get divorced. We're in California, yes.
And if you pray together, it's 1 out of every 100.
If you pray, if a husband or wife pray together every night, it's 1 out of every 100 will get divorced.
And then if you pray together daily and attend church weekly, it's 1 out of every 11.
So if you pray together and you attend church weekly together as a couple, it's 1 out of every 1,100. So are the odds against you? Without a doubt. But are there things within your control to make those odds very, very favorable? 1,000%. Oh, God, more physical touch? Okay. I thought I already did that one kind of, it's kind of the same.
It came in before you answered.
There are a lot of stuff.
What amount of physical touch is best in relationships? Cuddling, hugging, etc. How do I approach a girl to go on a date, and how do I know it's the right time? That's a good question. All right, I'll let you take it.
No, I'm not the guy. I'm not the, like, I mean, girls can approach too, but I've never approached the guys. I can offer.
I guess it is approaching a girl. So yeah, that should be a guy asking it. So actually, I'm a big fan of like kind of group atmospheres, because one of the things I'll tell you, I feel like dating is almost like a sales routine on both sides, right? And everyone kind of shows up best foot forward. But one of the things that's really hard to fake is it's hard to fake a group interaction. So and I know that this gets a little bit more dicey, like it's easy if you're in the same church to kind of like find yourselves in the same circles and kind of spend time that way before you decide whether or not you want to like take it to like the next, level. Different churches, it's going to take a little bit more work, right? But you're going to have to find to set some type of group atmosphere, because that's where I think that it should always kind of start, right?
It is nerve-wracking. I can imagine, and actually girls do approach guys too, so it's not like a gender-based, but it's nerve-wracking, and I think we need to show grace to each other when you're being approached or when you do the approaching. But I always think it's safe when you just ask for a cup of coffee. Like, hey, why don't we grab coffee together? You want to study together? I think to me, I'll accept that more than to like full-blown, love story and like it's too much. Just grab coffee, start small.
I was going to say studying, I feel like studying is a big commitment because that can go on for hours. Coffee's good.
Coffee.
Okay.
Just something small, I think.
And I never studied. So, in regards to number 6, what extent should women not be aggressive, assertive?
You gotta read that later.
So I'm just trying to figure it out right now.
In regards to number 6, to what extent should women not be aggressive, assertive? And in what ways does this not contradict the notion of not changing you?
That's a girl question. That's on you.
So in regards to, to answer number 1, I'm not sure I understand the second portion of it. What ways does this not contradict the notion of not changing you? I'm not sure how I correlate the two.
Well, this is a great way to make an anonymous question non-anonymous.
Very anonymous. Okay.
So whoever raised that,
No,
no? Okay.
What is not?
Yeah.
I think what this person is trying to say, sorry.
Okay, guys, so clearly it's Dina's question. So go on, Dina, what were you meaning?
It's too late for me. And so I think what they're trying to say is, if someone finds themselves, a female, finds themselves to be assertive or naturally, maybe has tendencies of aggression, but that requires them changing, is that a good thing? Because, how does this not contradict them changing? Or, I think what you were saying earlier is that you can't change somebody else. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a relationship, now the girl is expected to change and pull back and not be as aggressive if she's naturally aggressive. So how do you reconcile the two? I hope that's what this person is asking.
Can said person re-text the question?
I think it is so important, especially since I struggled with this a lot, to have wisdom in how to speak. I really early on discovered that a man is to be respected. It's so important that a man gets respected, right? And then I learned early on that they are so disrespected so easily. Everything, if you say something and you present something in the wrong way, all of a sudden it's very disrespectful. So you learn to word things. I'm a very much go-getter, but I can still relay the same message to him in a respectful manner. You're right, people don't change, but you do change, right? My behavior changes, which in turn, he changes. But he's not gonna change me and I'm not gonna change him. Am I kind of understanding the question? But the first portion of it was,
Oh, so it's really ultimately how you word your words. You know, are you being demanding or are you raising a concern? I hope I answered.
And I would just say that when we talk about like not changing, like I don't expect somebody else to change. I 1,000% expect me to change. Like if I have an anger issue, you know, I need to work on that. It's not like, oh yeah, no, I'm not like, you know, I'm angry, don't change me, you know, but I'm not gonna enter into a relationship hoping that that anger issue in the other person goes away. Like I have to make my decision as if that anger issue is gonna be there forever. Does that kind of make sense? But in me, I have to focus that I need to handle that.
Okay. It's okay. Just a comment. When we discuss not waiting too long, the longer we wait, the more likely we are to struggle with our temptation. Myth number 5. In addition, okay, there is no in addition. Maybe the next one? What do you do if you got cheated on, even though you did everything for your partner and I had to go out of my way for them? What's the thing that I did wrong?
So that's actually, is that 2 questions, different questions?
I think there was a continuation, so we assumed it was that continuation. The other one was just a comment, so you can answer this one.
When you discuss not waiting too long, the longer we wait, the more likely we are to struggle with temptation. Yes, that's 100% true. 100% true. That's not a question, it's a comment. And I agree with that said comment. Now, as far as the other one, what do you do if you got cheated on even though you did everything for your partner and I had to go out of my way for them? What's the wrong thing that I did? Honestly, you did nothing wrong. When you get cheated on, whose issue is that? The cheater, right? So the reality of it is, it's just like in cheating is like one of these things where it's like every other sin, right? Like let's say that, you know, I beat my wife, okay? What did she do wrong? Nothing, right? Even if she did something that upset me, do I have the right to beat her? No, right? So even in a relationship, right? Even if there's problems in the relationship, would I have the excuse to go outside of the relationship? No. Whose bad is that? The cheater, 100%. The problem is, and this is like where I tell you when it comes to like physical intimacy, where this is something that there's a reason that this is reserved and preserved for marriage, because it is so complicated, right? It is so deep, it is so intimate, that when it's done wrong, you're dropping an A-bomb. So if I was getting beat by my spouse, would I be walking away thinking, what's wrong with me? Probably not. I'd be thinking like, dude, my spouse needs to stop beating me, right? I get cheated on, and what am I thinking? What's wrong with me? It's like the fire in the living room. Like should have never ever been in the living room in the first place, because it's so intimate that it's supposed to never ever be touched before marriage. Does that kind of make sense?
I will encourage this individual to unpack that. Wrap your arms around it now that it has nothing to do with you.
Oh, actually, you know what?
Lust is...
I was going to say the only thing is you need better guardrails on who you're going to date.
Yeah.
That's the only thing, because I guarantee you that there was probably some warning signs along the way that was you turned a blind eye to.
And God willing, this is just a dating situation, and you can just back out now and make better choice for the next one. As a Christian, if we have already fallen to lust with a partner, can we rewind for marriage and reap the benefits of that with the same partner, or it cuts off? So
I'm so sorry, guys, but I guess, as you can tell, the questions are getting cut off. So hopefully for the next talk, it'll be fixed. But if you can make it shorter so we can show up or talk to them after, or we can start like paper, but if they're going to stay. But yeah, I apologize.
it will be very hard to rewind that. Absolutely, you can, okay? But that means your boundaries are gonna have to be stronger and more strict, because it's that. Do you guys remember that we all were told the story in confession, the monk that like was sinning, and remember that story? And he put a nail in the nail in the piece of wood, and then the abbot told him to take it out, and then he says, now put the same one. It's a very long story, but the story, the gist of the story is this, is that once you've fallen into sin once, the first time you probably felt horrible, but then it's easier to fall in it over and over and over. So can you rewind it? Can you still make it work with this person? Yes, you can. Is it gonna take a lot more effort and work and guidance of your father of confession? 1,000%.
Yep. Are they all getting cut off?
Straight up. How much should my bank account have, man? I don't even know if we're going to address that.
It all depends how big her ring wants to be.
What is the fine line between compromising in a relationship and being used? Oh. Go ahead.
It is a fine line, but the problem I have with that question is the intention of the other person. If you feel like you're being used, then you're being used, right? Like that's one of those things, and chances are that's not a good match, because when you are in a relationship, like for example, like I need to die to Christina, right? So I need to support her and do the things that she needs me to do, right? And at the same time, that only works if I feel like Christina is dying daily for me, and she is supporting me and loving me the way that I need to be loved as well. So if you're in a relationship, like for me, it sounds like what that question actually really means is I feel like this is only going one way. And if you feel that you're in a relationship that's going one way, then you're out. And I will tell you that if they are showing that now, it will not get better after marriage. Like they're still trying to like woo you right now. And a lot of people say, oh, but after marriage. No, guys, this is the best behavior. This is as good as it gets. When they got you, it's gonna, not in every case, but that's general.
I think it goes back to know your worth. Know who you are, know what you're worth, and don't settle for anything less than that. I think we just sometimes just to get married, and we are willing to get beat up for it. But if you know your worth and everything that you can offer, then you're not going to settle for that. What if you're a female, but you like a guy? What should you do?
Can you? I don't know. Actually, this is a great question. How did you pursue me? Because she was like all up on it, right? So go ahead. Why don't you tell that story?
Honestly, in this day and age, I think girls are approaching guys too. In fact, I think sometimes it gets super aggressive. Do you remember one of our kindergarten, this little girl was really aggressive with my son, and I said, calm down. I had to remind myself that it was kindergarten, but the fact is, women are aggressive, not aggressive. We are in a generation where they can pursue a guy.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I will say that girls have something in their favor, okay? And what girls have in their favor is that guys are wired to think that every girl wants them. See, and they laugh, but it's true, right? Like, you drop your pencil and a girl hands it to you, you're like, yup, that's what I thought, right? Like, it's like, so my thing is there's nothing wrong with a little innocent flirting, right? And I will tell you that if you innocently flirt with a guy, if he's interested, he will flirt right back. Mm-hmm. Okay? It doesn't take a lot. Like, guys are not clueless. Girls are clueless, right? Because girls a bunch of the time have no idea that a guy's like totally into them. But a guy, like, you just blink at him the right way and he's... Now, if you're flirting and he's not reciprocating, then chances are it's just, it's one-sided at that point.
Good advice. Oh my goodness. That one really
See,
went
there is no
through.
character limit. There is no character limit at all.
Great talk. Thank you. You're giving the talk to an average 21 to 22-year-old that are being raised, educated, and immersed in the American culture. What's your opinion on the intersection of cultures and bridging the gap of culture, taking into consideration the rise of less traditional gender roles? And the topics we discussed today. I'm in part referring to the older generation, our parents, who were born, raised, and educated with the more traditional gender roles and more conservative approaches to dating, marriage, etc.
Sure. So I will tell you that one of the things, there's one thing that we have to understand that transcends all tradition, generations, and any of this other stuff, and it's the Bible. Can we all agree on that? Like, the Bible we read is the same Bible that our parents read, and that their parents read, and that their parents read. It's the same Bible that our kids are going to read and my grandkids are going to read, right? So the reality of it is that's what we need to be in sync with. Okay? So chances are, if even growing up, there's a bunch of our moms that might have been stay-at-home housewives that just raised kids. Well, that's not this generation. Chances are there's a large majority of women who, they're going to be working, they're going to have careers, they're also going to have families, and like, that's okay too, right? And the thing is guys, I know a lot of the times we think our parents are like totally out of it and they don't get it, but they live in the same world that we live. They see it, right? And most of the stuff that we talked about today, it wasn't anything about culture, it was just biblical. So if you stick to what the Bible says, like, look, I don't care what anybody tells me. If they're going to sit there and tell me, well, like, you know what, it's 2022 now and the woman can be the leader, I'm going to tell you no. Not because of culture, but because of Bible. God's word is true. And we will not make a liar out of God, period. Right? Now, if you want to disagree with that, that's a whole other conversation. But when it comes to like just sticking to good biblical outline of like what family looks like, then that's what we go to, not our culture. Does that answer the question? Hopefully.
Say so.
How many of these questions are there? A lot. Okay.
Go
I
ahead.
think people want to go.
What is our love story?
You guys are looking at it right here, guys.
Okay. Our love story was in college.
No, we're not going to do that one.
We're not doing
It's long.
that.
It's
Just saying
long.
that.
Okay.
What happens? Is that where I'm at?
If
What
you're a
hap-
BMW guy and she drives a Mercedes, get a Tesla.
What is the expectation for young couples to go to church together, pray liturgy together, and serve together if they serve and go to different churches?
Okay, so actually that's a very real world example. I grew up at St. John. She grew up at Archangel Michael, and we went to different churches, right? You know when we started going to the same church?
We got married.
When we got married, right?
We actually served here for 2 years.
We did. Was it 2?
Yeah, we
Something
served
like
here
that.
under Samir for 2 years.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I got kicked out
So,
of the service.
and here's my thing though, and this is kind of like,
For going to too many Bible shows.
so a good thing to think about is the fact that the dating period or the courtship period, it's a time of separation as well. Like it's a time when you're getting to know each other, but it is not the time where the two become one. And I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking about even their lives. There's a certain level of designated separation that still has to happen, right? And like what Christina was saying earlier in her talk is that you need to have your own spiritual life. She needs to have her own spiritual life. And then when you get there, the two will combine. And even still to today, been married 17 years, I read my Bible by myself. I still pray by myself. Do we do it together sometimes? Yeah, for sure, right? But if you're still just kind of dating, courting, even engaged, it's still very healthy to each one kind of have like their own thing going on. And then when you get married, then you guys will do a lot of those integrations.
Yeah. Right. What extent should a parent be involved in a young couple's real relationship before marriage?
Very. So, and I'm going to tell you, this is just something that I'm actually very, very passionate about. So, because here's the thing, as a 21, 22-year-old, do you guys think that you guys have the emotional well-being or the emotional sanity to make huge decisions on your own? No. And one of the things I've seen over serving in the college for like many, many, many years, is the parents are the ones that pump the brakes. And it's their God-given role. So there's a lot of times where these kids will get into these relationships, and the first question, they're like, oh, I love them, they're so great, right? And I'm saying, what do your parents say? Right? And if they say, my parents don't know, I say, that's a deal breaker, because God will not bless that. Right? Like, God does not bless things that are hidden. God hates secrets. Okay? And then if they say, my parents are against it, then I say, then you need to pump the brakes. Don't do it against their will. Right? And if they say, my parents are for it, then I say, well, then that's a good sign. Because you're too emotionally engaged to make a good decision. All your hormones are raging and stuff, and you're missing a bunch of blind spots. But for whatever reason I've noticed is that the parents are usually on point. All right, well, is that the second time that same question came up?
How do you get out of a relationship?
How do you get out of a relationship?
We just talked about that this morning,
Yeah.
about how it's very hard to break up with someone when you're naturally a nice person. Stop. When you're naturally a nice person, because there's no nice way of doing it without hurting the person's feeling.
100%. And actually, we were talking about this on Africa Zoom. Do you guys remember this when we were talking about? One of the, I think it was Pavli, who asked like a very similar question. And I said, the hardest part of getting out of a relationship is you want the other person to still like you after.
Yeah.
Right? Because typically you care for that person and you don't want to be a jerk. You know, or if you care for the guy, you don't want the guy to have like a negative perspective of you, right? But the reality of it is, there's no way to do it. So if you realize a relationship's bad and you need to get out of it, you just need to tear off the Band-Aid, right? I don't care if you're the best guy in the world, you know, if you exit a relationship and the girl did not want you to exit, you're going to be a jerk, period. And there's nothing that you're ever going to do to change that perspective. You just got to kind of just realize it is what it is, and you need to move on. Maybe time will heal that wound, but if you're waiting to exit stage left politely, it will never happen. And the same thing for a girl. So it's not about what that other person feels at that point in time. It's you need to do what's right for you.
And I think
is that the last question?
I think it's important that we don't call and get back together and break up. If you break up, you break up. Don't look back. You know, if time passes, I know people actually broke up and got married, but that's years. You know, I mean, time has passed, prayer has passed, comes back. But this whole, you know, break up, get back together, it's really not healthy.
I just want to tell you, so you guys know the nation of Israel, you know, they were in bondage in Egypt, right? They're in bondage for hundreds of years. And if you read the account of their story in Exodus, it sucked, okay? Like straight hardcore work, slaves, you know, whipped, like everything you can ever imagine. And when they were freed from that, and they were on their way to the promised land, what did they miss? Egypt. And our memory has a very, like, funny way of doing that. Well, you'll look back and you'll remember all of the good things, right? Like, what did they miss? I think it was like the meat and the onions of Egypt. Completely forgot about the bondage, completely forgot about the slavery, completely forgot about making the bricks, and all of that other, completely forgot that Pharaoh was killing their children. And they longed for Egypt. And I'm going to tell you that that's a lot of the times, that's what Satan does with us, right? He'll make us go back and remember things very, very differently than they were. And my thing is look, if you broke up, there's a reason you broke up. And don't let your memory play tricks on you, because if it was good, you would have stayed. So when you make that decision, you just got to walk away and don't revisit it again. And now we're done. Yes.
Guys, I don't know about you, but that was insane. That was amazing. Thank you, Peter and Tina. I'm gonna give the mic to someone else, but let's pretend I said this in the beginning, and God forgive me, I'm so sorry, but this series could not have happened without John Saldik, Abuna Carlos, Abuna Fimon, Abuna David, Abuna Mark, Abuna Hannah, Amba Carlos, Dina, like, so all the speakers, they carried it. And like, seriously, thank God for them. But yeah, thank you so much, Peter and Tina. John, Abuna.
So definitely a big thank you to Tina and Peter and Tina. I do have just a couple points. So hearing some confessions, you find trends, okay? And there's one thing that I think you guys alluded to, and I just want to make it very, very clear. Our end goal of dating is marriage. There's second to none, right? There actually is no none. It is marriage, okay? And as so, we know what the goal as a man and as a woman. What my goal is as a man is to be like Christ. And the goal of the woman is to be like the church, right? And we know this from St. Paul, right? Okay. So in dating, do I become like Christ when I get married or before? It starts at the beginning. So men, be like Christ. But in doing so, treat the woman like the church. Treat her like the princess that she is. And I don't mean like princess like Misa, I don't mean like that, okay? I mean like Christ's daughter. Okay? Like the daughter of the King. Pursue her in reverence, in fear, in purity, and in righteousness. Okay? In fear, in purity, in reverence, as Christ's daughter. Okay? Because they're worth that. Okay? And work on being like Christ. And in return, as a woman, treat him like Christ and work on being like the church. Okay? And when you first approach dating, okay, there has to be some level of commitment. And this is the word that sometimes we really fear to hear, right? Commitment. If I fear that word, then maybe it's not time for me. But I have to have some level of commitment. Like I'm going to marry them the next day. But I can't be dating and just kind of looking around, trying to play the field. Okay? But please, treat each other like Christ in the church. Okay? This will sit, because then all those questions, not all of them, but a bunch of them, like how far can I go? What can I do? What is righteous? All those kind of come into vision, right? So please, treat each other with respect and reverence and holiness. Okay, let's stand up and pray. Oh yeah, somehow this always happens. Include your father of confession, right? I had someone come up to me and said, I've been seeing this person for the last few months. And I said, are you serious? I could have told you from the beginning that it wasn't right. And they went through heartache and all this other stuff. I could have saved you that time then. Okay? Please include yourself, the other person, God, and your father of confession. For sure, that's your core block. Okay? All right, let's pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Make us, Lord, worthy to pray thankfully and say, Our Father, who art in heaven. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Christ Jesus. Glory forever. Next week, we will be starting at 7 o'clock sharp. Okay, so we went a little over this time because we started a little late, and so I apologize for that. 7 o'clock sharp. Now the love of God the Father, the grace of His only begotten Son, our Lord God and Savior Jesus Christ, the gift and communion of the Holy Spirit be with you. Those who wish to depart in peace. The peace of the Lord be with you all.